Hey doing everyone, this is the Cyberbehike Sanakori right here at the tAiNoFuNhOuSe. I'd like to welcome you to the new show podcast, and I'd like to appreciate you liking this video, also subscribing if you haven't yet. It's gonna go a long way, I tell you, as we take this journey in the cyber world, etc. Once again, I just want to mention, like in past videos, I really want to digest this whole sense of the Taino God. And for many people, you might get offended because Taino God? Is God Taino? Well, is God Muslim? Is God Christian? Is God Jewish? And so on. That's the ultimate question. But here's the thing, as a Taino, Caribbean indigenous person, I just want to share a little bit of my story to you all. If this is the first time you are downloading this show, and if this is the many times you've downloaded this show, I just want to be very candid in this new podcast in which I will share a little bit about myself as a Behike in the cyber world. For the past couple of shows, I've been sharing about the sacred tree, how we start as a seed, and then the potential is there. And as we know, we come to know that eventually that seed will turn into a magnificent tree. So we know through the example of this nature that the potential of the seed becoming a tree, the vision, the potentiality of the seed gives us hope. It gives us this vision. Also, as babies, as infants, as toddlers, as children, as teenagers, as adults, as elders, and in our death. This is an example of potentiality becoming real, becoming powerful, and how it relates to one another. We are in relationship. Our first relationship is with our mother and father. For many of us, maybe we did not have a father growing up, or maybe we lost our mothers through either death or separation. I myself was separated by my mother a few weeks after my birth, and there's a lot of family politics that came with that. But the bottom line was I was raised by my paternal great grandmother, who introduced me to the spirit world. She's the first one to introduce me to what we call spiritismo, spiritualism, and within that syncretic worldview, spiritual worldview, I was able to understand for the very first time that there's something more powerful than myself, more powerful than my great grandmother, more powerful than my great grandfather, more powerful than any human being I knew as a young child. And this is when I received my first vision of the sacred, the ultimate reality. When I started really contemplating this whole sense of the burning of the incense, the smoking of the tobacco, I was introduced to plant medicine, the plant people, the tree people, the minerals, the magnets. I was introduced to different people who were looking for healing, and most importantly, I was introduced to a culture that was foreign to the United States, all the way from the mountains and the lands of Borinquen. I was introduced to that way shortly after the death of my great grandmother. I was 11 years old. I was in search of spirituality, and I lost this spirituality somehow. I lost connection with the spirit world. So I was desperate, really desperate to connect with the spiritual realm. And this is when the closest thing that I had to this was the Roman Catholic Church. It was during these funeral services when I lost my cousin, I lost my great grandfather, and then my great grandmother. Everything was centered towards the Catholic Church through the mass, the burial mass, and the funeral mass, and so on. So I decided as an 11-year-old I was gonna go into that world. So from 11, 12, 13, 14 years old, all those years I was groomed by a priest, not solely to become myself, not become a spiritual leader, but I was groomed to be a sexual victim, a sexual abuse victim, I should say. And I knew early on there was something wrong in this spiritual realm within the Catholic Church. I was physically abused, I was emotionally abused, and eventually I was sexually abused. It wasn't until 1992 that I eventually approached church officials and I told them that what happened to me through the encouragement of other religious, and I said to myself, I need to take a stance. I need to confront this destructive energy that surrounds me in my memories. So it wasn't until 2000, I would say it was around 2017, that I finally got word from the Roman Catholic Church that they were wrong. Specifically the Brooklyn Diocese. That yes, I was in fact physically, emotionally, and sexually abused. Now, from 1992 up until 1996, my goal was to become a Franciscan so I can help other victims. But unfortunately, as I try my best to try to be that role model, somehow to try to infiltrate the church, it was just not my calling. Anxiety got the better of me. I was diagnosed with post traumatic stress disorder, and it was during this time that I got the first smell of the church cover ups, as they were covering up priests that I knew very well were predators. Now, I did go to college, I was very successful as a seminarian, and but I just, the anxiety was first taking hold of me at that time. But eventually, as I entered a religious order, I was much more mature, but yet the anxiety overwhelmed me too much. The politics against women, politics, celibacy, and so on was just the final nails of the coffin. I had to walk away. But before I did walk away from that lifestyle, I was dealing heavily with anxiety and post-traumatic stress disorder, but I still refuse. I still refuse to give up. I wanted to be that person, to be a voice to those who were sexually abused within the church and outside the church. And I was meeting people who also have very similar experiences as me. So I fought hard to try to be that role model. And once again, anxiety was beating me up. So what happened was I was invited to Montana by a friar. His name was Father Robinson, Charles Robinson, great priest. Many people in the Crow Nation, Crow Agency know him very well, or knew him very well, now that he's in the spirit world. So it was during this time that I experienced my first sweat lodge in the Crow Way. And for the first time in my life, anxiety did not overwhelm me. For the first time, I felt like this monster called post-traumatic stress disorder, this other monster of anxiety, was finally lifted when I was in the sweat lodge ceremony. And I remember it very well. So many years later, I knew my calling was not in the Roman Catholic Church, as anxiety finally took an awful turn, and man, I got the worst case of hives in my life and eczema. And this is when I finally knew if I would physically be able to do this, actually, if I was able to live a very happy, fruitful life, it was not in the Roman Catholic Church. I just could not be that role model. I could not be that champion for victims of sexual abuse. as a priest or as a brother. So I left. It caused much anxiety, but it was kind of a different anxiety, no longer with the hives taking over me, but the anxiety of starting a new life now. But that sweat lodge ceremony, that cleansing ceremony, it gave me so much power. And I forgot to mention, I went to visit a Crow Sundance, and within the Crow Sundance, in one of the days, I believe it was Saturday, I was given the opportunity to receive a blessing, I should say a healing from one of the medicine men that were in this lodge. Excuse me, the Sundance Lodge. And I could remember seeing the buffalo head looking right at me. I was hearing the eagle whistles and the dancers. And when I finally was invited into the lodge, into the ceremonial circle, I was given a super special blessing, a healing ceremony by, I believe it was the son or the nephew of the chief medicine ceremonial leader. And it changed my life completely because the feather touched a part of my hair right behind my neck here, in which I suffered tremendous pain and anxiety. That's the source of my anxiety. So whoever this medicine person was, he truly helped me so much to understand the power, the super power that anxiety had on me. And I for that short moment, I felt the relief. I felt the relief. But it also taught me where the source of my disease was located. So it was during this time that I started entering, I would say around 1993, 4, I entered a different realm. I was still a friar, but I entered a different realm called the Taino movement here in New York City. So within this Taino movement, it started giving me a new identity. And what I did was, I started really asking myself the ultimate question: where will I be happy? So in leaving the friars, I had to find a new path. But now, not as a religious in the Roman Church, but as a Taino, a noble person, a good person. And I started I started diving into the sacred texts of the creation stories. I was first introduced to Bartolome de las Casas during my systematic theology class when I wrote a paper on Bartolome de las Casas and his influence in the church in the Caribbean. So I started opening those books again, and I went to my good friend Henry. We went to Seton Hall University, where I had gone briefly as a seminarian and I found a book there. It was called the Indigenous in Spanish and Diccionario Indígena de República Dominicana. And there, I started going into this dictionary, and this is when I first encountered two words, Ara, Yeke. We put them together, and that meant the people will rise, or the risen people. So I said to myself, wow, this is kind of symbolic of what I'm going through, rising from the ashes of my experience in the church and my abuse and so on. And it was only a few years after that I had approached the church about my abuse. So what happened was, I became a follower of the Taino way as much as I can through the New York City movement. I really didn't feel connected to any of the communities, but yet within that process, I was having fun. And I was also struggling with a new identity, not just as a Puerto Rican or American, but now I was putting on the clothing of being indigenous Caribbean. And that gave me tremendous liberation, even though I was suffering internally and externally to belong. Many people judge me as a religious, and that's all right because hey, I started learning about Columbus and the abuses, so I didn't blame anyone. But I couldn't change my past. I knew I was a religious, but now I was a tAiNo, and I started walking that path, dancing, playing music, and so on. In the future, I'll be giving some storytelling about some of my experiences, some of the people who are no longer here in this earthly realm. I would like to eventually share some nice stories about them so that memory can live on because we truly don't die. So guess what happened? Fast forward, tAiNoFuNhOuSe. The tAiNoFuNhOuSe is a place where anyone can come. It's a physical place here in New York City. I've opened my doors to anyone who is seeking to connect with their ancestry, Caribbean, indigenous, or any indigenous ancestry. You're welcome here in the tAiNoFuNhOuSe. Just email me, tAiNoFuNhOuSe at proton.me, and we can set you up. I have a huge collection of books here, the Mobile Indigenous Library. If you want to connect any projects, hands-on, working with our mother, Atabe, there's a program that I'm working here in New York City Parks. The Shirakapak Earthkeepers will set you up. Once a month, we're going to have karaoke night, and it's going to be fun with food and so on. So the tAiNoFuNhOuSe, if you need a place to stay to talk about your identity, if you need help with that, or if you need a place to celebrate, come on in. It's called the tAiNoFuNhOuSe. So I just want to end this video by saying, my story is very similar to a lot of stories that I've seen in the news for the past couple of years now, related to the Epstein files and also my ancestors during the time of Columbus, Ponce de Leon, Juan Esquivel, in which they used our women and children as sex slaves. The story will never go away as long as we are humans. There are people that do not follow the red road. They don't follow that sacred tree path. So what do? Instead of fortifying the tree, they cut the tree and they abuse it. And this is what happens to our children, especially our younglings who are female and also males. This is horrible, and it must stop. Every community has this poison. And as long as I'm alive, and as long as there's other people like you watching this video, we cannot let our younglings, be neglected, be abused in any form, because they are our future. So it's very, very important that we all connect somehow. We need strong leaders. We need strong role models like yourself. Because if you're watching this video and you're watching it to the end, just want to say we need you. Okay? We need you. There's a lot of confusion and there's a lot of understanding when it comes to the tAiNo God. For me, the tAiNo God has 13 faces. Okay? And we know this God through nature, and we know this God through our human nature. So there's human nature, and there's the physical world, the physical nature of our animal world, our mineral world, our plant world, human world. This is how we see God. Okay? And it has 13 faces, starting with Atabe and Gualansesh. Now, Atabe, these are manifestations of the sacred being, the ultimate reality. And within this face of Atabe, which is representing the power of the life force in which we create, we create, just like Atabe, we create. Our women get pregnant and children come into this world. Very powerful medicine. And then there's two other faces that come with Atabe's spirit, life force. And that is the spirit of the sun. We see the sun as another face of God. And then we see the rains That's another manifestation, another face of God. So we have Atabe, we have Moharu, and we have Boinayel. And on the flip side, we have Guavansesh, the hurricane, another face of God, the power of the replenisher, the menstrual cycle, where the potential becomes death. But within this death is a reminder that we need to cleanse. So we have Guavansesh, and then we have two other faces, and that's the face of Guatauba, the thunder and lightning, the crier, a reminder that there's something powerful out there in the universe that's electric. It's a reminder of its power. And then we have Guacristie, the power of the waters after the hurricane that comes down the mountain. The water can be life-giving, and also it can be destructive with the floods. So there's a fine line once again. So far we got 6 faces. Okay, and now you have Yokahu, rooted in the earth of the Yuka spirit, also connected to the water, another face. The son of Atabe. Now there's 2 other manifestations, 2 other faces. We have by Brahma, which is the fire, okay, of creating the yucca. And also we have Baraguabae, the fish, the plants, and you know the sacredness of those energies. So then we have 3 more faces, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now we have 3 more. When we talk about the darkness, we talk about death. Maute de Guayaba, that is the Lord of the Dead, where he points to Guave. And then you have the 2 final faces of God. Well, the second to last faces of God, which is, ready for this? We got Obiegwa Beyond, the spirit, the guardianship, the watcher of Guave, the dog deity, and then you have a dog spirit, and then you have Gorogote, romance, sexual delight. And there's one more face of God. And I want you to look in the mirror, because you are the 13th face, humanity, the stewards of the earth, the guardians. We have a role as guardian. We have a role to protect our relatives, the animals, the birds, the minerals, and the plant world. Because we know we need them all to live and survive. 13 semis, the sacred ones, the semi, the sacred. So, just want to tell you all, thank you for tuning in. I want to expand more on these 13 faces, because 1 plus 3 equals 4. The sacred 4. That's right, the sacred 4. And I'll see you soon. Don't be shy to write me if you need any help, or if you want to be part of the show in the future. When I come on out, we live in New York City. We have some great stuff going on. So I just want to tell you right now, you are a sacred being. And you have the power to create. You also have the power to destroy. So let's keep the balance. Let's keep the rhythm. Okay? Try not to destroy, but try to create. So this is the Cyberbehike Sanakori, and I'll see you soon. Peace out.